Before the break, we took you through Ray Ramundi's piece about the death of 2-year-old Gabrielle Boyd. Yesterday, Rich sat down with Journal News reporters George Fitz-Gibbon and Jonathan Bandler, and they dug deeper into the story.
Let me give the barrage of questions that I've gotten from many people who've been following this story, and I have myself. 5:30, cops go with the dad, they knock on the door opens. And she says, and there's a disagreement, whether she said stuff I can't say on TV or she politely said, thanks but no thanks, we'll work this out tomorrow, you and I, to the father when he had normal visitation to come and get but no matter what, the door closes. What happens then?
Well, there is disagreement, Richard, as you say, between how civil this encounter was. It's gone from they slammed the door on police to a very civil sort of, well, there's visitation tomorrow, so the girl's father can have the child tomorrow. It was calmer than that. What we do know is that police left around 5:30 without Gabriella.
Now, John, here's where a lot of the questions come in. It wasn't just the dad asking the cops to come for a ride. He had an order in his hands that a judge gave. Now, as you understand it, what did that order, civil order albeit, but what did that order empower the police to do?
It lacks any empowerment. I mean, it doesn't tell police to do anything. And that's one of the things that people are pointing to, the fact that it didn't go far enough.
But some did say that certain orders are more restrictive than, as we understand at this point, that order was, that the judge in the order gave a lot of discretion as to the removal of the child.
Well, remember, this is an order to show cause, which essentially is written by the lawyer. The lawyer is the one drawing that up, and the judge can generally crosses out. He's going to order a hearing for a few days later, but in the interim, he's going to take some action, and that is agreeing with some of those paragraphs that the lawyer included in the order to show cause. Now, it's clear that the order was seeking an order of protection, which is a document that police are very familiar with, and they know to enforce those. But that didn't go that far. It simply ordered that Stephen Boyd get temporary physical custody of Gabriella, and that, very importantly, that Cynthia Arce stay away from both of them. So at this point, you know that if the police know that Gabriella is in the house, and she's closed the door and said she's not complying with that order, well, they know that she's in violation of the order at that point. That's a question of then what happens, then what should be done, if anything.
And listen, you guys have talked to even more family law attorneys than I have, but the ones I've each give me a different answer on this. It wasn't a suggestion or a hint that they went there with. They had an order from a court. Now, here's my question. Woman closes the door. I get it's a legitimate debate. Are you going to kick the door down or whatever else? The cop, as we know, made a few phone calls. He called back to the precinct house. Now, police are supposed to have a protocol book as to what to do in certain circumstances. I know you guys have asked for it. To this point, it has been released. But you have the district attorney's office that theoretically could give clarity, the judge or another judge that's on 24-hour call. Do we know who they said, guys, tell me what to do?
Well, that's just, Richard, to back up a little. From what we've learned, our indication is that a lot of these conversations that happened on Friday evening and Friday night were prompted probably by Martin Rosen, who is the attorney for the father of the young girl. So the scenario, as we understand it, is the father was clearly dissatisfied. His name is Stephen Boyd, as you know. At some point contacted his attorney, Mr. Rosen, and he sort of spent the next 4 or 5 hours pretty much screaming and yelling for some resolution to this. He spoke to the police. By his account, he spoke to higher ranking officials in the police department. Whether or not the police would have called Child Protective Services or the district attorney's office on their own, I don't know, but I mean, there was that other component there. Now, from what we know, and there's a lot we don't know, as you mentioned, we don't have any indication that there was, for example, a history of involvement with CPS with this little girl.
But it should be mentioned, George, if I can interrupt, there was a voicemail, at least according to Rosen, who sat in his chair, very troubling that the mother, a couple days prior, had been thrown out of the house. She'd been let back into the house of her mother. He claims that there was a voicemail from a very distraught mother of the child, to the point where he was worried she was going to injure herself. Are we in a situation now where a court issues an order to remove the child? Basically, the parent says no and closes the door. And we don't know whose role it is to take the next step?
Well, we do. I mean, there are definitely next steps to take. You go back to court to get, now, of course, this was a Friday evening going into the weekend. There is a duty judge at the family court. We don't know if there was, we don't believe that there was ever any attempt to reach out to get clarification from the judge.
But John, isn't it a criminal act if you're issued an order and you choose not to comply? Couldn't they have gone back and then?
We've raised this issue and asked if couldn't they have then sought an arrest warrant because she was in violation of criminal contempt, in the sense that she knew about the order and she intentionally didn't comply with it. The lawyer for the union said, well, that's never been done.
Tragically, the next day, the police came because a 911 call was made. It's not that they came of their own volition or went there to pursue the next step in going back to the parents. As we understand, at least as I know, they didn't go back again on Friday night.
There's 2 points, and if I may. John mentioned the affidavit earlier. Now, what the affidavit is, when Mr. Rosen, the attorney, files the order to show cause on Thursday, with that comes an affidavit, which is basically a statement from the father, Stephen Boyd, saying these are the concerns I have. Now, according to Rosen, that is presumably, Cynthia had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He claims that she had tried to take her own life in the past, that she had a past substance abuse issue. So these are things that help the judge make the decision to sign the order. Our understanding is that was never shown to police. Now, you raised a point about Saturday. That remains a huge question. From what information that we have, I don't know that anybody returned the following morning. So you have a situation Friday night where you've had police at the house, you had an order served, presumably a CPS caseworker was there later that night on Friday, and yet Saturday morning, we have no indication from radio calls or anything else that anybody returned before the 911 call at 1:30, which of course it was too late at that point.
And it all speaks to, again, the sense of urgency that people felt.
Because of the information blackout that resulted in this, we're getting absolutely nothing from the agencies involved.
Well, that's my last question,
Right.
which is, and I've been following your guys' reporting on this, what are they doing?
I go so far as to say it's an outrage. I mean,
It
without
is.
question, they haven't even confirmed the name of the officer who fired the shot that wounded Cynthia. Not to say that it was, it's not our place to say whether it was a good or a bad shooting, but basic information. I mean, we don't know basically anything. The only information we've gotten are from Mr. Rosen and the Mamaroneck Village Police Benevolence Association.
They cite investigation. There are absolutely details here of what transpired that they can share that don't violate privacy, that don't affect the investigation, to set the record straight.
And beyond just justice for this poor child and for the father, et cetera, there's systemic questions that I can't believe we still don't have clarity. At the end, it's somebody's job to decide what they should or shouldn't have done next. And by the way, they should have notified the father too. I mean, the fact that the next phone call he got about it was from the hospital where his child was rushed to, where she
3.5
eventually
hours
passed.
after the incident,
I mean,
absolutely.
so
Here's the thing, and for our purposes, because we do see ourselves as representing the public in terms of getting this information out. If there is a loophole in the law, if there's a gray area in these court orders, what they should or shouldn't say, if there's a question about how police act or should not act in these situations, then let's expose it. Let's talk about it. Because if that is the case, it still exists today. And God help us if another call comes in tonight and we have a similar situation. So, it's to us, it's, the information is vital. Because if this girl is dead because of like a gray area or a loophole, let's expose it and fix it.
absolutely. John, George, I know you're going to stay on this story here. Hopefully we'll get some answers soon. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Lots more reporting on this from George and John. And to read the full story, head to lohud.com, where you can check out Sunday's Journal News. Up next, we pivot back to politics and look at the latest controversy at the White House. An aide who made a joke about John McCain dying, and the White House's response. Spoiler alert, there wasn't much of one.